Welcome to another deep dive into the AI world. Today we'll be exploring some of the biggest stories from the AI News Digest for February 19th, 2025.
Yeah, there's quite a bit to unpack, from exciting new models being released to some pretty interesting issues developers are running into.
Well, let's dive right in then. Elon Musk just launched Grok 3, and he's making some bold claims about it being superior to all its rivals. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Grok 3 is certainly making headlines, but a lot of AI experts are skeptical about those claims. They're saying the benchmarks Musk is using, particularly those comparing it to OpenAI's O3, aren't really a fair comparison, especially since O3 hasn't even been released yet.
It does seem a little premature to be making those kinds of comparisons, right?
Right, and then there's all this talk about Grok 3 being capable of real-time stock analysis, which is raising some ethical concerns.
Yeah, I could see why that would worry people. A powerful AI with access to market data and the ability to react instantly.
Exactly. Imagine the potential impact, and not necessarily a good one. Even Andrej Karpathy, who's usually pretty optimistic about AI, tweeted that while Grok 3 is capable, it still suffers from the same limitations as other large language models.
So, potentially a powerful tool, but one that needs to be handled with care.
Definitely. Moving on, Perplexity AI just open sourced their model R1-1776, which is built on DeepSeek's R1.
I read about that. They're claiming it provides uncensored, unbiased, and factual information. It seems like a direct response to all the concerns about AI bias and misinformation. But how can they guarantee that? I mean, any AI, even the smartest one, is trained on data created by humans who are inherently biased.
That's the big question, and to be honest, Perplexity hasn't really explained how they've achieved this supposed bias-free model.
Transparency is crucial when it comes to AI, especially when dealing with sensitive topics like bias. We need more than just claims. We need to understand how these models are making decisions.
I completely agree. Speaking of breakthroughs, DeepSeek also unveiled something called Native Sparse Attention, or NSA. It's a new way for AI models to process information, and it's generating quite a bit of buzz.
I'm not very familiar with that. Can you elaborate?
Sure. So at the heart of it is attention, which is basically how an AI model figures out what parts of the input data are the most important. It's like when you skim a long document, focusing on key points and ignoring the rest.
So native sparse attention is like giving AI speed reading superpowers.
You got it. Traditional models would meticulously read every single word, which is slow and computationally expensive. NSA allows the model to be more selective, focusing only on the most relevant information.
That sounds like a huge improvement. Faster processing, lower training costs.
Exactly. And as models get even bigger and more complex, efficiency will be key. So NSA could become the standard approach for future AI development.
Speaking of big and complex, downloading large AI models can be a real pain. It takes forever. But there's a new tool called HF Transfer that's claiming to make downloads much faster, potentially up to 1 gigabyte per second.
It's a game changer, especially because we're usually stuck with that 10.4 megabyte per second cap when downloading from Hugging Face.
So no more waiting for days to download a model. That's incredible. But I imagine there might be some legal issues with sharing these models so easily.
You're right. Sharing model weights, particularly for large models, is legally a bit of a gray area right now. Some people are even suggesting that torrenting could be the future of AI model distribution.
Torrenting AI models, that's a bold idea. It would certainly make access easier, but also opens up a whole can of worms regarding security and control.
Absolutely. It's definitely a conversation the AI community needs to have as models become more powerful and more widely accessible.
For sure. Let's switch gears and talk about how AI is being used in the real world. There's a new study, SWEP eLancer, which puts large language models to the test on real-world software engineering tasks.
And not just any tasks, tasks worth over $1 million. It's meant to see how well AI stacks up against human software engineers.
So how do they do?
Well, not as well as you might expect. Even top-tier models like GPT-4 and Claude 2 struggled to handle the complexity and nuance of real-world software development. GPT-4, for instance, was only able to complete about 10% of the coding tasks and 20% of the management decisions. Claude 2's success rate was even lower.
So even though AI is making strides, it seems there's still a gap between what it can do in theory and what it can do in practice.
Exactly. It really highlights the limitations of AI and reminds us that we're a long way from replacing human software engineers completely.
Absolutely. It seems like the focus should be on how to use AI tools to complement human skills rather than trying to replace humans altogether.
I completely agree. It's about collaboration, not competition. Humans and AI working together can achieve so much more than either could alone.
Well said. Now let's talk about something a bit more visual. AI image and video generation. There are a couple of new video generation models making waves, Skyrocket MG2 and Luma's Ray 2. They're both pretty impressive, but they seem to have different strengths.
That's right. Skyrocket MG2 bid seems to be the more reliable option if you need to generate a video that strictly follows your prompt, even if the visual quality might not always be the best.
And Luma's Ray 2.
Luma's Ray 2 is known for producing really visually stunning videos.
But,
It can be a bit more unpredictable and might not always stick to the prompt as closely.
so it's a trade-off between precision and creative freedom, huh?
Exactly. Choosing the right tool depends on what you want to achieve.
Makes sense. And there's also this new sampling technique called RAS, or Region Adaptive Sampling, making waves in the world of diffusion transformers. It claimed to improve both image quality and speed.
Sounds great on paper.
Yeah, but
But there's some pushback from users who are reporting a dip in quality, especially in details and structural similarity.
so maybe not a silver bullet just yet.
It's too early to say for sure. More research is needed to fully understand its abilities and limitations.
Okay, before we move on, I'd like to talk about developer tools. Any new and interesting tools that you've come across?
Oh, definitely. There are a few tools that are gaining popularity: Aider, RA8, and Cursor. They're all focused on using AI to help developers with everyday tasks like debugging, finding missing files, and even searching for code snippets.
It's like having an AI assistant looking over your shoulder, helping you to write better code. Imagine you're stuck on a bug, and this tool points you right to the problem.
That's the idea. They're getting better at understanding code and providing helpful suggestions, like having an AI pair programmer.
That's fantastic. It sounds like these tools could be a game changer for developers, especially for complex projects.
And there are even some interesting comparisons being made between Sonnet 3.5 and DeepSeek's R1 when it comes to coding tasks.
Oh, a battle of the coding titans. Who's coming out on top?
It's tough to say. They both have their own strengths. Sonnet 3.5 has a larger context window, meaning it considers more of your code when giving suggestions, but it's more expensive. DeepSeek's R1, on the other hand, is known for its speed and affordability.
The classic trade-off of power versus cost.
Exactly. Ultimately, the best choice depends on the specific needs of the developer and the project they're working on.
Having options is always good. Before we wrap up, let's take a quick look at the hardware powering these advancements. GPUs and high-performance computing, HPC, are the engines driving a lot of the progress we're seeing.
Right. And there are some interesting developments there, too. For example, Unsloth's dynamic 4-bit quantization technique has been integrated into VLLM.
And what does that do?
It significantly reduces VRAM needs, meaning you can run larger models on less powerful and more affordable hardware. That's great for accessibility.
Amazing. It's like squeezing a supercomputer into a laptop.
In a way, yes. And then there's the competition between AMD and NVIDIA in the AI chip market. AMD's Ryzen AI Max and M4 Edge processors are shaking things up with their lower power consumption.
So they're challenging NVIDIA's dominance.
They are. It's an exciting time to be watching the hardware side of AI development. It's a high-stakes race to see who can build the fastest, most efficient chips to power these ever-growing AI models.
It sounds like we've covered quite a bit in this first part of our deep dive.
We have. There are a lot of new models, breakthroughs, and even some controversies to keep an eye on.
It's really fascinating to see how fast the AI landscape is evolving. What stood out to you the most so far?
For me, it's the sheer pace of innovation. It's incredible.
I agree. And it's not just about the technology itself, but also about how AI is being used in the real world, in fields like software development and even art and music. It's changing how we work, how we create, and how we think.
Definitely. It's a truly transformative time for AI, and it's going to be interesting to see what the future holds. It feels like we're on the verge of seeing AI becoming a part of everyday life.
Oh, absolutely. And tools like LM Studio are making it easier for people who aren't AI experts to build and use AI models. They're even experimenting with something called dual model inference, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting idea. Basically, they use two AI models together, a smaller one for initial reasoning, and then a larger, more powerful model for the more demanding tasks.
Ah, so instead of one AI trying to do everything, it's more like a tag team.
Exactly. Each model specializes in a particular area.
Makes sense. Are there any downsides to this approach, though? Doesn't it make things more complex?
Well, it can, and that's probably why LM Studio hasn't fully rolled out the feature yet. There are still some kinks to work out, but the potential benefits are huge, especially in terms of performance and efficiency.
I see. Well, let's get back to the SW Lancer study for a moment. It's really putting those large language models to the test with real-world software engineering problems.
It is, and the results are pretty eye-opening. While AI can write code and even solve some complex programming challenges, it still struggles with the less defined aspects of software engineering.
You mean like understanding ambiguous instructions or making judgment calls based on limited information?
Exactly. Those are the kinds of things that require human intuition and experience.
And that's where AI still falls short.
For now, at least, the Sway-Lancer study really highlights that gap between AI and human capabilities.
But it also raises an interesting question. How can we build AI tools that actually enhance those human skills instead of trying to replace them?
I think that's the key. It's about collaboration, not competition.
Humans and AI working together.
Right. Using AI to augment our abilities and create something truly innovative.
I like that. Now, what about Perplexity AI's new model, R1-1776? They're claiming it's unbiased and uncensored.
It's a bold claim, that's for sure, and it's sparking a lot of debate in the AI community.
Because it's one thing to say your model is unbiased, but how do you actually prove it? Especially when any AI is trained on data that's created by humans who are inherently biased.
That's the million-dollar question, and so far, Perplexity hasn't really provided any technical details to back up their claim.
It all comes back to transparency, right? Especially when we're talking about sensitive issues like bias.
Absolutely. We need to be able to understand how these models work, how they make decisions. That's the only way to build trust.
Okay, let's talk about DeepSeek's new Native Sparse Attention model, or NSA.
Right. Remember how we talked about attention being like skimming a document?
Yeah, focusing on the important parts and skipping the rest.
Exactly. Well, traditional attention models are like reading every single word, which is really inefficient.
So NSA is like giving the AI reading glasses.
In a way, yes. It allows the model to be more selective and efficient, which means faster processing and lower training costs.
And I read that NSA is similar to Microsoft's SeerAttention.
It is. There are some interesting parallels between the two approaches.
I wonder if we might see some collaboration between DeepSeek and Microsoft in the future.
It's certainly possible. We're seeing more and more collaborations in the AI world as the challenges become more complex.
Makes sense. Okay, let's shift gears and talk about AI image and video generation. There are a lot of new models coming out all the time.
It's a fast-moving field.
It is. What are your thoughts on Skyrocket MG2Vid and Luma's Ray 2? They both seem to be capable of generating incredible videos.
They are, but they take different approaches. Skyrocket MG2Vid is like that dependable workhorse, always follows instructions, but maybe not the most creative.
And Luma's Ray 2?
Luma's Ray 2 is more like the wild artist. Might surprise you with something amazing, but might also go off script.
So it depends on whether you need precision or creative flair.
Exactly.
And what about RAS, or Region Adaptive Sampling? It claims to improve both image quality and speed.
It does, but some users are reporting issues with quality, especially details and structure.
So maybe not the perfect solution just yet.
Right. More research is needed.
There always seems to be a trade-off with AI, doesn't there? Speed versus quality, power versus affordability.
It's true. That's why it's so important to stay informed and understand the nuances of each new technology.
Speaking of new technologies, anything exciting in the world of AI-assisted coding tools?
Oh, definitely. Aider, RA8, and Cursor are all gaining popularity. They're using AI to help developers with tasks like debugging and finding missing files.
So, like having an AI pair programmer.
Exactly. They're not perfect, but they're getting better at understanding code and giving helpful suggestions.
That's great. It seems like these tools could be really valuable for developers, especially on those big, complex projects.
They could be, and there are some interesting comparisons between Sonnet 3.5 and DeepSeek's R1 for coding tasks.
Oh, yeah. Which one is better?
It's hard to say. Sonnet 3.5 has a larger context window, but it's also pricier. DeepSeek's R1 is known for its speed and affordability.
So the classic trade-off again.
It is, but it's good to have options.
For sure. Now let's talk about something a little different. AI music generation. I read about a project that's using AI to create music from JPEG bytes.
Oh, yeah, that's a fascinating one. They're using autoregressive models, which are usually used for text generation, to predict the sequence of bytes in a JPEG image, and then those bytes are interpreted as musical notes.
Wow, so it's like translating the visual language of an image into music.
It is. It's really pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible with AI and creativity.
It makes you wonder what other hidden connections are out there waiting to be discovered.
It does. AI is constantly surprising us.
So where do you think all of this is heading? What does the future hold for AI?
It's hard to predict the future, but I think it's safe to say that the pace of innovation is only going to accelerate.
And with that comes a responsibility to make sure that AI is developed and used ethically and for the benefit of humanity.
Absolutely. We need to be having those conversations about bias, privacy, job displacement, and the impact of AI on society.
We can't just sit back and let things happen. We need to be proactive and shape the future of AI.
I agree. It's a call to action for all of us.
Well said. I think that's a good place to pause for now. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have, and I'm sure we've given our listeners plenty to think about. It really feels like we've only just scratched the surface of what's happening in AI.
Yeah, there's so much going on. It's almost overwhelming.
I know what you mean. It's exciting, for sure, but also a bit daunting.
I think that sense of we're just at the beginning brings us back to something we've talked about a few times today. The gap between the hype and the reality of AI.
It does. Like with Grok 3, Musk is making these huge claims, but the AI experts aren't convinced.
Right. It's a good reminder to not just believe everything you hear.
Absolutely. We need to think critically about these claims. Look at the evidence, not just the headlines.
And that critical thinking applies to how we think about AI's impact on different fields, like software engineering. The Swaylancer study showed that AI isn't ready to take over just yet.
Yeah, it's not a magic bullet. It's important to understand its limitations.
But it could be a powerful tool.
Definitely. When it's used strategically, it can really enhance human capabilities.
It's about collaboration, not competition.
Exactly. Humans and AI working together is where the real potential lies.
And that collaborative spirit is something we see all across the AI landscape. So many people sharing ideas and working together.
It's what makes this field so dynamic. Everyone's pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
And the impact is being felt everywhere, from science and medicine to art and music.
It really is. AI is changing how we think, create, and interact with the world.
It's not just about algorithms and data. It's about using those tools to unlock human creativity and imagination.
Absolutely. But we need to make sure that AI is developed and used ethically for the good of humanity.
We can't forget about the human element.
Exactly. It's a responsibility we all share to shape the future of AI.
It's a future full of potential, both good and bad. We need to make sure the good outweighs the bad.
That's where the conversation comes in. Asking the tough questions, considering the ethical implications, and working together to create a better future with AI.
Well said. It's been a fascinating deep dive.
It has. Lots to think about.
Definitely. Thanks to everyone for joining us. Until next time, keep exploring and stay curious about the world of AI.